All right, so welcome everybody to this wonderful Thursday evening lecture. We have a fantastic set of programming for you as Natalie and I continue to work with our wonderful leaders within the California ACC to help us build our personal and professional development within the world of cardiology. The Connecting California initiative is something that we, as the Southern and Northern California Fellow and Training Catalysts, have worked hard to put together and work with members within the state with our FIT panel and fellows across the state in both general cardiovascular disease as well as advanced subspecialties to help us build a new networking platform that allows us to come together, collaborate, make connections that will help enrich not only our personal and potential professional lives, both in and after training. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank everybody that's been a part of this process to allow us to come together and put these events together. And I'll turn the floor over to Natalie.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikhil. We're super excited for this talk today. And we're glad that it's sort of a smaller, intimate group because I think this will be really fantastic for everyone's own professional development. So I'm really excited to present our speaker today. So Clementina Sula is here today. She is currently a lecturer at the University of Michigan's International Institute and the Chief Development Officer at Henry Ford West Bloomfield Hospital in Michigan. She's currently responsible for all the hospital's fundraising efforts. She has a fantastic background, all based in the Midwest, which I am very fond of since I'm also from the Midwest, and I think some of you might be as well. But she did her undergraduate training in economics at the University of Michigan. She went on to receive a MA in higher education and a Master of Public Policy at the University of Michigan. She has previously worked for the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv, Ukraine. She's worked for the United States Mission to the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, and she's worked in the State Department in D.C. She currently teaches a course at the University of Michigan entitled Network Your Way to an International Internship and Career. And she teaches this course to students in the program in International and Comparative Studies at Michigan. She's also taught numerous seminars and workshops on professional development, including courses such as Networking Strategically, Tell Me About Yourself, Articulating Your Personal Brand, and Making an Impactful First Impression Resumes and Cover Letters. We're super excited that she's here today to join us through California ACC, and we hope that you all enjoy this session. Thank you, Clementina.
Well, thank you so much, Natalie and Nikhil, and thank you, Liana. I'm so grateful to be with all of you. I say hello from Michigan. There are 400,000 families without power, but here I am at work, and so excited to be with all of you. So I'll share my screen. I do have a PowerPoint that I created. And when Natalie and Nikhil and I connected, we all agreed that networking is super important. So we had this conversation around, how could it benefit, fellows? How can it benefit people in healthcare? So we decided on the title of Beyond the Match System, why networking matters and how to network strategically in healthcare and in life, because I'm married to a cardiologist and I have my own personal stories as to why I think not that everyone should network, but I think physicians in particular. So let's see. I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit more. So you heard my professional bio. I wanted to share my life purpose, and it really is to inspire people to live their best lives and achieve their aspirations. One thing you should know about me is that I'm an immigrant kid. My family moved to the US when I was 9. We didn't know a word of English. We had to start America from scratch. I was a goody two-shoes, right? I did everything that that everyone told me that I needed to do. But when I graduated from the University of Michigan, I graduated without a job. So I'm like, what went wrong? And so when I think about why I teach networking so that no one graduates without a job and no one feels what I felt at that time. I am married to Elvis. He's a cardiologist at Beaumont Health, or now it's Corewell Health, as there was a merger. And my favorite quote is to be the change you wish to see in the world. And I think it's very much what doctor is all about. Like, how can we save lives? So that was the, hey, let me impress you. But I now want to give you my failure resume, because I think it's from our failures where we learn who we really are. And it's my failures that actually educated and taught me the things that I want to share with you today. So I remember being rejected. You know, Natalie, you talked about my experiences with the State Department. I have 3, but it all started with me being selected as an alternate, which meant that I probably wouldn't have had an opportunity to do those experiences if it wasn't for the power of networking. I mentioned that I graduated from Michigan without a job. I can tell you that I didn't get a Fulbright scholarship, which was really, really sad. I didn't get into law school, and what I wanted more than anything was to become an immigration attorney. I didn't kiss the ring, right? I advocated in my line of work, I advocated for the donor, and I lost a big promotion. My position in the past got eliminated, which means they wanted to get rid of me. So I've experienced that too. Personally, I've had a miscarriage, and it really taught me a lot about what it means to provide meaningful care. And I can tell you that I, aimed to get a $10 million gift, and I lost it. So this is a little bit about me. But now let me tell you the story that really, I think, connects networking to all of you. So I'm married to a physician, like I said, and his name is Elvis. And I remember the first time Elvis came home sad. So Elvis went to Michigan State University. After that, he went to University of Toledo for medical school. After that, he got his residency at the University of Michigan. After that, he got a fellowship at Beaumont Health. After that, he has, another fellowship in cardiac imaging. But before he did his fellowship, he said, I want to do a 1-year experience. And he applied for a hospitalist job at the University of Michigan. And he came home and sad one day because he didn't get that opportunity. It was the very first time ever that Elvis was rejected. So when we talked about beyond the match system, it was you go and compete, and you study really hard, and you take your tests, and you do the things that you need to do to get on to the next step. But once you are done with your schooling, it's a whole different set of skills that you need to think about. So he came home, he was sad. It was the first time, like I said, that I've ever seen him that way. And I was kind of happy that he didn't get this hospitalist job, because it was a night shift job. And I'm like, well, what kind of life would we have if he was going to work night shift and I was going to have a day job? And I said to him, well, honey, what kind of experience do you want? And he's like, well, I want to be a primary care doctor for at least a year. So I remember calling a friend of mine. Her sister was a leader within the University of Michigan health system. So I remember Elvis and I met with her, and we had coffee, and Elvis is like really charming and knows his stuff. So the next thing she said is, go and meet my friend, who happens to be the guy who was recruiting physicians. And when Elvis meets this friend, he says, oh, you're so-and-so's friend. How would you like to be an internist at the Briarwood Clinic starting, in 2 months, when he was done with his residency? And I think it was that experience that people give opportunities to people that made Elvis and made me realize that we really need to have conversations around what networking is, how do we build relationships, and what does that look like in practice. So I told you a story. Maybe we can have a conversation around what you all think networking is. So I only see Carly, so I don't know what the rest of you are thinking. But what is networking? You've heard of it, you know it's important. What is it?
Since you called me out, I guess I can help.
Thanks, Carly.
In my worldview, networking is the opportunity to facilitate and build generally professional relationships with a variety of purposes, or no clear purpose at all, and then maintaining those relationships to help facilitate different professional outcomes moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? Are you all thinking, or you agree with what Carly said?
I guess I second a lot of what Carly had to say. I would also share that while professional networking is key, personal networking I think is far more pertinent for all of us as a whole. And personal networking actually drives, and you showed perfectly in your case for Elvis, professional networking as well. So it's building those core groups of individuals around you, whether it's the immediate geographic vicinity or whether it's nationally or internationally, whatever it may be. So that way you have a common group of people that you can reach out to and kind of glean insight from or learn from their experiences and kind of better yourself in a way.
Thank you. Is it Zaniar?
Yes.
Hi, welcome.
Hey, I'm Zaniar, one of the second-year fellows, cardiology fellows at Stanford. I think I have maybe an unpopular opinion here, is that maybe it's like I'm coming maybe from a background like where I did like a lot of my undergrad, etc. Like networking was not that important. But I'm saying if we were living in a society that networking was not important, and you would send and everyone would get equal opportunity, maybe Elvis would get his job, like the job that he liked at University of Michigan, and that position went to someone else who the job search person knew that other person. So I think just like, I don't know, I would love to hear your thoughts maybe about this, that do we really what will happen if everyone stops doing this networking, and how the society would look like, and was only based on, okay, so this is your qualification, you're qualified for this job, this. I totally understand that it could be an aspect to it that, hey, obviously the personality of people is important. Obviously, you would love to have a work environment that like the people that are liked and like super like nice, like your husband, significant other, and everyone else. So obviously we understand that, but I was thinking about it, because when you said he didn't get that job but he got the other job, so if it was not the whole networking thing, maybe he would have gotten the first job, because that may have gone to someone else that knew the job search person. So it's a little bit complicated thing, just made me think.
So we can have that conversation, as we continue. I have lots of thoughts on that, but the main thing that I can tell you is that people make decisions based on their experiences, right? Based on our biases. It's all subjective, right? I might like you, and therefore I think you're the best thing since sliced bread. Carly might say, actually, you don't align with what I care deeply about, right? So what makes somebody qualified could be very different depending on the experiences and biases people have. Like leadership is very subjective. I think the big lesson that I've learned in life is that leadership is personal. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it seems we have a lot of interest, in this discussion. So I think Natalie, you raised your hand first.
I think it was because it was an unpopular opinion. That's why people have a lot of opinions.
Zaniar is always stirring up controversy.
I like it.
No, I was actually thinking that networking definitely seems active in some sense. It's personal, professional, institutional networking, but there's definitely a passive component. You could be networking and not necessarily realizing that you're doing it. And I guess Tina gave us the example of someone might not like you, and that might be networking passively in a negative way, just something that you've done or an interaction that you've had, and you don't realize the impact. And I think that maybe we don't really understand that those passive things that we're doing or not doing. Like, for instance, I don't know, just the example of turning on your camera or not turning on your camera. Like, I think that's a form of passive networking too. If someone sees your face, I mean, now you know Zaniar's name and face, and you can call him out anytime. So I think that's an important aspect to discuss as well.
Yeah. Carly?
I was going to say, as somebody who has sort of had a nonlinear trajectory through healthcare, and has been a complete product of networking, as opposed to the traditional, go through the application process and see where you land. I think what's uniquely interesting about healthcare and networking is you sort of have to have a certain, there's a certain entrance requirement that comes to be part of the crew. You have to have gone to medical, or I'm talking about physicians specifically, but you have to have gone to medical school. You have to have had some level of training. You have to have a certain level of education. You have to have a certain level of privilege. And so I think you end up getting this group of people that's extremely qualified. And from an admissions and application process, extremely qualified. And from what I've heard from program directors and such, or job applicants and such, they all start to look the same. And I think it is important to regain that personal element to the healthcare worker, as we've seen in the pandemic. We've become these cogs in a wheel, and it's a crime. We need to regain the humanity that is healthcare, and I think networking is a huge part of that. So I would sort of beg to differ that no, we shouldn't be going based on qualification, because we're all qualified. That's the problem. We're all overqualified and being overworked, and I think you need to regain that humanity.
Thank you. We're all of these topics that you guys are discussing, so like personal branding, like authority, we're going to discuss very shortly. So when I ask the question, what is networking, is I think a lot of us, we know it, we feel it. I think that it's like very American to also think of networking as like, oh, it's a professional relationships thing, as opposed to relationships in general. And it took me 8 years to come up with a definition for networking that wasn't biased in some way. So I would like to share some of these definitions with you. So I started really thinking about the word networking, right? So there is network and then ing, right? So a network is a system of internet connected people and relationships, and the ing, it's a gerund, right? So it makes it it takes action. So you take action on the network, right? So how do you engage the system of relationships? Then I started thinking more deeply around, when we network. So I met Liana through Dr. Thomas, and then Liana connected me with Natalie and Nikhil, right? So it started by me building a relationship with California ACC. Then, Natalie and Nikhil, we had this conversation around, hey, this is what I teach. Would this be helpful to your group? Right? So that was a nurturing of the relationship. And then after that, it became okay, let's do something about it, which is, the gathering we have here today. So then the definition, for me, that I would like to share with you, and I would love for you to challenge it if you disagree with it, is that networking is about building relationships. I know you and you know me. It's about nurturing relationships. Now that, we know each other, we should build trust. And then once there is trust, then we can activate relationships in order to access that opportunity so that we can reach that goal or purpose. So if the goal and purpose of your group is, hey, how can we best prepare, future cardiologists for life post fellowship? Like, what are some resources that we can bring? Then potentially our time together could be helpful. I'm hoping that it will help change mindset around networking in some way. So then if it is about building, nurturing, and activating relationships, then networking is really that pathway to leadership. So here's this networking loop, makes it really easy. So it's when you're connecting with another individual, whether it's the guy at Starbucks, whether it is your fellowship director, whether it is the president of the United States, the networking is the act of engaging with another person with a purpose. Maybe it's, hey, I want to give somebody good wishes and say, have a great day, enjoy your Starbucks. Or it's, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I'm trying to figure out next steps. Will you advise me? But it is a relationship between two people, and that interconnectedness between these two people, right? So the infinity loop is that relationship and trust building. The big aha, and I think this is what I guess I knew implicitly, but had to find a way to articulate explicitly, is that life is a relationship business. It's just in general. right? Everything we do is for people and with people to advance humanity forward. I tell my students, so I'm sharing with all of you, when you apply for a job at, I don't know, UCLA, Stanford, come to the University of Michigan, you're applying for a job at these places, but there are people at these places that are going to make that decision on you. So Zanyar, you know, as Carly said, everybody's qualified. I mean, you have the quote unquote, the entrance requirements, as you call them, Carly. Now it's a matter of, is the person who has the authority to make that decision, are they going to be aligned with you in some way to say, yeah, I think you're the guy that fits exactly with the culture that we have, and we want you to come in. Zanyar, what do you think?
All right. So I was texting Natalie that I think I shouldn't make more or give more like share my unpopular opinion more, but you know, I agree.
Share your unpopular opinion.
No, I agree. So yeah, obviously I get it. So there's a lot of like that. It's all about, you know, I completely agree. A lot of times that the things that are written in our CV, or like the things that we know, like, or like we write in our application or things like that, it doesn't have that human touch. And that networking obviously helps us to understand the goals and like, you know, find a circle of people that you can work with towards the same goal and purpose. Obviously it does make sense. Like, you know, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And I think we all know this. I'm just giving you a reminder.
No, sure.
So it's everyone has their own mindset, right? Carol Dweck has her mindset. Here's my networking mindset. The networking mindset, in my opinion, and the work that I've done, is that belief that we can achieve our goals and purposes through our relationships with others.
That's true.
Right? Because we can't give opportunities to ourselves. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm an immigrant kid. We believe that America was a land of opportunity. When we come here, we realize that these opportunities don't fall from the sky. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, great, I'm in America. Let me grab opportunity A, let me grab opportunity B. People give opportunities to people. You know, we have to be able to tell people what we want. And then other people are like, oh yeah, let me help you with that. But it is people ultimately who make decisions. So if we don't believe that other people can help us get where we want to go, we're probably going to get stuck. I can say this, you know, I think about my husband, you know, many years ago. He's like, well, I'm studying really hard. I have really good scores. Like, I am competitive. Like, how could this happen to me? But then real life is this.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, couldn't agree more. That's the reality. But you know, it's
hard to take.
Yes. Yeah,
and
that was my point earlier. Yes, I would.
I'm, you know, and I'm using my husband. He's probably like, why are you using my story? Use your own. But same thing happened with me, right? I'm just happen not to be, you know, I'm not a doctor, but the same thing happened with me. I did all the right things as a Michigan undergrad. I had a great resume. How come I didn't have a job after graduation? And then everybody said, well, you have to network. And I'm like, well, what is that? And then you Google it and there's nothing there. I mean, that's exactly why I started teaching the class that I teach. So the big question then is, because when we talk about leadership, you know, the reason I have my main slide with Be the Change, right? Here's my mug again, I still have, is because leadership is about change. We want to move the needle, right? All of you are in healthcare because you want to transform healthcare, right? You want to make the world a better place. You want to alleviate suffering or human suffering. So look at this, you know, a model, this framework that I have. It took me 8 years to develop. So let's start with the inner circle, which is networking, because I mean, that's what I teach, right? So I shared with you that networking is about building, nurturing, and activating relationships in order to access opportunity so that we can reach a goal or purpose. And then I said to myself, well, why am I networking again? Well, that's the definition of leadership. Like, I want to see the change, this particular change in the world. And whatever that change is, me asking that next question of why do I care about that particular change? Well, when I ask the question why, I get to purpose. All of you, I'm sure, wrote a personal statement, a purpose statement to get into college. I'm assuming, and I know this because I remember Elvis writing his. You wrote a statement to get into fellowship. There is a reason, right? There is a motivation that makes you want to do what you do. So that is your purpose. And then when you ask the question, why do I care about this particular purpose based on your experiences, you get to your values, what you really value, what you really believe, who you really are. So Simon Sinek, have any of you, all of you heard of Simon Sinek? So Simon Sinek has this great talk where he talks about start with why. In order to figure out, what you should do with your life, like think deeply about, what motivates you, what's your life's purpose. And in order to do that work, you have to look at your experiences, your life experiences. And there are psychologists have done all the work, and they say that by the age of 5, 50% of your values have been shaped. By the age of 9, 10, 11 is more like 90%. So who you are today and what you care about today, it's shaped by the experiences that you've had as a young person, unless you had a traumatic experience, in your life since then. So if you want to know what you deeply care about to the point that you're willing to do anything about it, go to your, first 10 years of your life and think about the experiences that matter to you. I think they will help you articulate your purpose and articulate your values. So I'm going to come back to that, because now I'm sure some of you are thinking, okay, but what does this have to do with networking? And I will get to it. So once we start networking with other people so that we can access the opportunities that we seek, other people have an impression of us. So Zanyar, I'm going to pick on you because I think you like being picked on.
Not really.
You like to be the delightful troublemaker.
All right.
I said delightful troublemaker. I kind of like that. Those are people who really want to engage. You want to dig deeper. I was called a delightful troublemaker once, so I kind of love that.
That's how I network, by making an unpopular.
Great. You are someone that I'm going to remember. And isn't that the whole goal of networking? So that as opportunities come up, you want people to think of you first.
That's a good point.
Right. So that's what personal branding is. Now that you and I, have met and we've had this conversation, I, have thoughts, right, about you and your brand. And then if I didn't know you at all, I would just say, oh, Zanyar is a second-year fellow at Stanford University. So I would make a lot of judgments based on that. Oh, he must be really smart because he goes to Stanford. He's a cardiologist, and all of those social constructs that come with, just your positional authority.
True.
So how do these two things play together? So the part where networking, leadership and purpose. So leadership is the what. What problem are we trying to solve in the world? Your purpose is your why. Why is that important to you? What is your driving force? Networking is how you're going to live your purpose and how you're going to activate your leadership. So that's who you are. So when you're going to have conversations with people, they're trying to get to understanding who you are. And then if people don't know you at all, the outer core is how people perceive you. And the people who are happiest in life, and I think the most successful in life, have an alignment between their inner core and their outer core. So when we're trying to network, how can we make sure that we achieve the things that we want to achieve, our inner core, and then how can we show up in alignment with who we are? Any thoughts on this? No thoughts?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I have a lot of cognitive dissonance about these two things.
Okay. So how might this framework be helpful for you when you're, meeting somebody? So I'll give you like one example, and we'll see how it goes. See, I believe strongly that if I'm going to work at a place, I want to make sure that my values align with the values of the institution. But the values of institution are pretty much shaped by whoever is in charge. So if you're trying to interview with someone at, cardiology department in, name your institution, do you just want a job? Are you willing to say anything to get the job? Or do you want to be able to work at a place where you can be yourself? Because the only way to be yourself is to ensure that you can live your values every day. So I remember being at a place where the leader led by his authority. It wasn't the community's hospital, it was his hospital. So when you're trying to do the right thing for the patient and your bosses are saying, no, it's all about the money, how are you going to function at such a place where there is misalignment between what you want to achieve and why you got into healthcare in the first place and what the priorities of that institution are? I see some of these nods for the, the four of us that are on screen. But how about, I don't know, can I ask Sneha, Megan, David, Dee, what are you thinking? What do you want to achieve, right? Networking is about reaching a goal or purpose through our relationships with others. Do you just want the job? Or do you want the job, but want to be able to do what you do best?
I think there's part of this is that we've always been trained to think that a certain set of core values are quote unquote the most valuable. Okay. Like, for instance, to get to this stage, you have to build an academic record. And so a very easy example to give is performing research. And you sort of walk through these hoops, at every stage, and you keep doing research, you keep doing this thing over and over and over again, because that's what you believe is like the fundamental value of this, this profession that you've chosen. And I think if you come to the realization when you're looking at your inner core that maybe that's not what you're interested in, but you've already put yourself down this path, you might think, well, let me take a job that has that value of, advertising research, and maybe I can change the mindset of those people. And then I can, mold myself into doing what I want to do. I think potentially that might be what some people do, and that's how they become dissatisfied in their jobs, because then the expectation is still there and they can't actually change that fundamental value. But I think a lot of it is just ingrained in us because there are a certain set of things that you need to do by our industry standards to reach a certain level.
So, which is great, but now you're going to be done soon, right? Your third year, you're going to be done soon. So now you're going to have to make decisions about where you're going to work. So what do you do? Do you really do you think that you can change the values of an organization? Because I can also tell you that when you try to change the values of an organization, the authority figures will use their power against you, because people in power will do whatever it takes to stay in power. Nikhil?
So I think, you bring up a very interesting point. I don't think either one is mutually exclusive or collectively exhaustive in the setting of, if you have somebody that says it's all about the financials, then arguably you can make the argument that that pushes us to actually follow some of the core competencies that we're supposed to be using in terms of high value care delivery. There is a plethora of testing that is available, and often there are people that are getting the plethora of testing because, one, they ask for it, two, people don't want to take the time to actually talk to patients who are people, right, and share why certain testing isn't necessarily appropriate or could be done without, because there is a higher value, cheaper test that is available that takes care of it. And three is something that sometimes forces us to get creative, right? And sometimes it's just the job that you take because that's what we're offered when we're looking at the fact that we've been in academia for an eternity and have a burgeoning a debt load of whatever it may be, and it's the here and now. What do I do to get the ball rolling? And sometimes that ball keeps rolling and you get trapped in the situation of, well, how do I leave, or how do I to move on to something else? Or sometimes it's a let me bite the proverbial bullet for a few years and get my feet wet and understand what's going on and learn and train and then figure out what my next branch point is. And I think a lot of us struggle with that because there's always been this clear, well, for those that have had a linear path, there's a clear path that it has kind of been traversed in terms of, high school, college, graduate school, potentially medical school, residency, fellowship, advanced fellowship. But for those that have had a circuitous path, maybe we think a little more outside of the box and are willing to tolerate less desirable outcomes for the immediacy, knowing that it's just a short period of time from which we can pivot and kind of drive forward. So I mean, I don't think there's a black and white, correct versus incorrect, or right versus wrong, because it's going to be variable for each one of us. We have our own set of beliefs and background and situation from which we're actually making our own independent decisions. But I think looking at everything and being willing to challenge the status quo a little bit is something that we all need to do, because this is an industry and a business that is always new, ready, and ripe for change.
And I want to share that there is always judgment when anyone makes a comment. All I'm saying is know your values and find that value alignment. Who am I to, if you want to follow the money, follow the money. If that's important to you, do it. But understand that by following the money, you're going to have to give up certain things. Also understand that if you're going to live your values, you're going to have to give up certain things. But like knowing is the most important thing, so that you can do it intentionally and you can be in charge, quote unquote, of your destiny. I don't know, Natalie, I think your hand was up. No, Carly, sorry.
I was going to sort of say what you said, Tina, which is I think at times certain values become more of a priority than others, and you have to decide what those priorities are, and if you're willing to put those other values on the back burner or be less of a priority at a certain time. To Nikhil's point about, having certain expectations for your career and being willing to tolerate it or not, I almost think like as you get further and further through training, there's almost more exposure to what it is out there and more knowledge and understanding of what the status quo should or could or needs to be, and that can almost add to more misalignment, because you're so aware of like the grass being greener or other instances or other experiences, because you've been going to different institutions or you've been going to different places or you've been having different experiences. And I think that the way you sort of mitigate it is have the difficult, vulnerable conversations with people that you've built relationships with, and find people that are in alignment with your values to push the meter forward and to give you a sense that you have community amidst a situation that you might not be aligned in.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where I struggle sometimes, is I think I really do align in my personal professional life, and then there's an aspect that I don't. So then you sort of find camaraderie in that frustration, and that can be sort of motivating to move forward.
Natalie.
Carly made me think of something. We had a mentor that told us piece of advice on how, to be promoted or to sustain your job is to be involved in as many things as possible at that institution. And so that your value increases by, people can't eliminate you if you're critical to so many aspects of the functioning of the organization. And so I can definitely see how that perpetuates the misalignment of, your inner core and the outer core. And I wonder if, some of those people who subscribe to that way of thinking then eventually think, well, once I'm, indispensable in so many ways, maybe then I can pivot to have the organization's values align with my own. I just thought that was a really interesting piece of advice that was given to us, and it seemed sound at the time, but maybe that's actually, a bad trajectory to start on. I don't know what your thoughts are.
For me, I've learned to find people who believe what I believe, because those are the people that will enable the group to really change the world. I personally have been in many experiences where I pushed and pushed and pushed, and they found a way to get rid of me. I've been in situations where, like Zanyar, I gave my unpopular opinion. It was the right opinion, but it was unpopular because the higher ups didn't like it. And they found a way to make my life not happy. Right. So, for me, every time I meet someone, I use my framework to say, am I value aligned with this person? Does this person, is their purpose aligned with my own? Because if their inner core aligns with my inner core, I will do anything for this person. Like if they want to change the world, I'm going to be the person that says, hey, let me connect you to 25 opportunities. But if I know that it's complete disalignment or misalignment, not disalignment, misalignment, then it's going to be like peace, because I will never, change their mindset because their beliefs are completely different. So now I know that there are people who love me and there are people who do not. And before I used to be very upset about the fact that some people didn't like me. And now I'm like, I can't control it. I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be nice, but I'm going to focus on the people who believe what I believe in terms of the change they wish to see in the world. And sometimes you can figure out, if someone is leading from their values, those people are leaders. You will do whatever it takes, whether it's your job or not. If someone's leading from their authority, those people are bosses, and they use fear as a way of getting you what they want. Well, when somebody uses fear, you might do it because, hey, you need a job and you need money to pay your bills. But at the next opportunity, you're out. But when you're with people who share your beliefs and who are real leaders, you're going to be rolling your sleeve. You're going to be doing whatever is necessary because you're in it, quote unquote, for the right reasons. And you don't care that it's extra work. You don't care that you're working extra hours because they make you feel that what you do is important. So value alignment, you're probably in the presence of a leader. Someone uses their authority and says, I am the CEO. You're in the presence of an authority figure, and I don't think they're going to care very much about you, because if they cared about you, they wouldn't have to use their authority. I don't know if that's helpful, but for me, using this framework, I can figure out very easily how much time I want to dedicate to this person, and if I want to work for them, and if I want to do business with them. And like I said, life is a relationship business. So whether it's volunteering, whether it's being on a board, whether it's, a work contract, whatever it may be, life's too short. Find the people who believe what you believe. Carly?
I was going to ask you specifically about that, like the networking in and around people that don't align with you, especially when you're early career, like how you navigated that, or when you sort of had that realization. How do you recommend managing that? Maybe that's a very loaded question.
Well, it's a loaded question because I think it takes us a while to understand it. I think, if I can teach my younger self, I would say, do what Natalie's mentor said, meet a lot of people, right? Because when you're meeting with a lot of people and you're learning different things, you figure out who leads with their values and who leads with authority. And then, the ones that inspire you, spend a lot more time with them. You know, as I said to Zanyar, be the person that they remember. Because when there are opportunities that come up, you want to be the person that they think of. Because every opportunity that I've had, it was somebody called me up and said, hey, Tina, I really think you should consider this. You'd be great for this. The job that I have currently, I'm at the Jewish Federation now, but the job that I have currently, it was totally my brand. Like, people knew me, they had an experience with me. And, you know, when it was time to consider me, it was like, oh yeah, we know Tina. It's, you know, it has nothing to do with the interview, right? The interview, I could be a rock star or I could be terrible. It was about my brand, what I do consistently, how I show up in the world. And when I know my values and I know my purpose and I do things on purpose, and I learned that on purpose means intentional, right? To be on purpose is to be intentional, then I'm consistent. So the people who value how I show up will connect with me, and some people will not. But once again, I'm trying to find the people who align with me. So if I'm in a bad situation, I'm going to try to get out of it. And I want to move into a situation with people who share my values. But the earlier I can figure it out, the better. Because the longer you're in that kind of situation, the worse that it is. And I teach networking, right? I teach this kind of framework so that you can go straight into a good situation, as opposed to, you know, I just need a job and I'll take whatever. And then you take that job and all of a sudden, oh crap, this is terrible. This is not how I want to live my life. Because I have students who are like, well, no, I really want the $80,000 a year and not the $55,000. And that $80,000 was not in alignment with what they cared about. It's all a negotiation. I don't know if that's helpful, Carly. Yeah, okay. Just to move forward. So to define strategic networking, it's really that connection and alignment between clarity of purpose and clarity of opportunity. So you have to know what you really, really want, and it has to be really, really clear. And then once you know what you want, then you're going to look for opportunities that align completely with that. So the story that I tell is that I drive a Ford Explorer, but I didn't always drive a Ford Explorer. Once I started driving a Ford Explorer, what kind of car do you think I saw and I see on the road all the time? What kind?
Ford Explorer.
Ford Explorer. So the same thing goes with strategic networking. You know, you have to go and, do that self-leadership and have those conversations with yourself where you say, this is exactly what I want. Like, this is the job, this is like the culture. And then you go out there and you start kissing a lot of frogs until you find the opportunity that aligns with what you want. And if you start doing it yesterday, and if you create habit around networking, and if you follow up with people that you meet, before you know it, you're going to find people whose values align with your own, who do the work that you want to do. It exists out there. Or if somebody meets you and they say, wow, you're so impressive, what will it take to recruit you? Then you can say, this is the work that I want to do. But remember, people give opportunities to people. People give opportunities to people who know what they want. They say confidence is sexy. Yes, confidence is sexy because people don't want to do the thinking and the work for you. So tell people exactly what you want. And you're going to kiss a lot of frogs, sure. But you're likely to get the thing that you want as opposed to taking just any opportunity that is out there. Thoughts, questions? So I think it's important to share with people a networking process. A lot of students will say, well, okay, great, Tina, you're such an extrovert and you can talk to anybody. How am I going to do this? And I think once you give people a process, it changes everything. So networking mindset is what we believe. So you have to believe that opportunities come from other people. The networking process is then, how do we do it? Like, what do we do about it? So these are the intentional steps and structure to activate the networking mindset. So number one is you have to define your goal. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Step number 2 is you have to strategize and determine who you should engage with to help you reach your goal. So networking is about people. People give opportunities to people. So who are the people that you know that can help you? So if you want to finish your fellowship and go to Chicago, who are the people in Chicago or who know Chicago or who can get you as close as possible to Chicago that you should start networking with? You know, make your list. And then once you make your list, then your goal is to determine that alignment. So number 3 is you have to ask for support. You have to, you know, engage. And I think a lot of people are so afraid to, oh, I can't call that person or I can't do that. But there is no networking without actually engaging with another person. So I go back to that infinity loop. So you have to ask for support, and then you have to ask to offer support. So it's a really give or take. I am the master of somebody says something and I'd be like, oh, I need to connect you with my friend X. Oh, have you thought about this? You know, and then I actually follow up and say, hey, I wanted to connect you to my friend X, Y, and Z because I think, you know, there's alignment here. Because just as much as you might need a job or need an opportunity, somebody's also dying to hire talent or to hire good talent or better talent. And then once you reach out to people, step number 4 is feedback. You have to follow up, you have to follow through, you have to be grateful. And I can tell you stories upon stories where people, you know, like, I'm going to reach out to that person because I need this, and they reach out and that person helps, and they don't do anything after that. And the person wonders, hey, like, I think I helped that guy. Whatever happened? Trust is built on the follow-up. Most people will not do the follow-up. If you want to be somebody people remember, follow up, say thank you, write the thank you note. You know, do the work. And what happens is once you define your goal and you start doing steps 2, 3, and 4, the thinking that you do, thinking and the action that you do is these steps and the information you gather, you might realize that that's not really your goal after all. Maybe you don't want to go to Chicago. Maybe you want to work for an academic institution and not a private clinic. But if you don't have the conversations with people who have gotten where you want to go already, you will never know, and it's going to be a guessing game. So networking in practice. So how to build relationships. So determine, you know, who you want to reach out to and why. Actually reach out. Tell people why you're reaching out. You don't have to be like on the sides. Tell them, hi, I'm a second year at Stanford University. You know, I'm thinking cardiology. You know, I'd love to hear more about the work that you're doing at, I don't know, Northwestern. You know, chances are, I mean, I know that if you email 10 people, 5 people will respond. And, you know, my students, like I make students do informational interviews. Response rate is at least 65%, and they reach out via LinkedIn. So you have to, like step 3, you have to engage with people. Be clear on what you want and let them help you. So building relationships is not just professional relationships, it's relationships. Remember when Elvis needed, you know, an opportunity? I didn't go to a professional connection. I went to my friend Marisha. And Marisha went to her sister. So it is relationships. People make decisions. So when meeting new people, and you know, number 1 here I have, do you know who you are, what you stand for, and what opportunities you seek? So this is very much your inner core. You know, when we talk about leadership development, it's not about resumes and cover letters and how I give a presentation. Leadership development is actually leading ourselves. And how can we be better at sharing our story so that we can have the impact we want to have in the world? I've thought very, very deeply about that, like leadership. What does that mean to be a leader? Being a leader is living your purpose. Is there alignment of opportunity? Does the person you're meeting have authority to share the opportunities that you seek? Can you add value to each other's goals? Is there alignment of values, right? Does the person you're meeting care about what you care about? Do you have things in common? Because the opportunity could be fabulous, but you know, what if they only care about money and you care about impact? Just as a, you know, as a basic thing. Or what if they, you know, I hear this all the time, particularly, you know, from fellows where they say, I study with, or one of my attendings is this world-renowned expert in blah, blah, blah. And all the papers this world-renowned expert writes, he's always first author. Right? So he never lets his fellows be first author on anything. What do you think that says about this attending? Is he a leader, or is he a authority figure that I have to be, you know, the person in charge? If you were to take a job and work with that person, will this person give you opportunities? Or is it going to be, you're going to do whatever it takes to make him look good or her look good? So these are some things to think about in terms of value alignment and opportunity alignment, because in a win-win, it's value alignment and opportunity alignment. So the big life lesson that I want to share here is that anyone can be a strategic content, but just maybe not now. So be nice to everyone that you meet, because you never know when you might need to call them. So how to build relationships and nurture existing relationships. Here are some, easy ways. Building relationships: help a stranger, compliment them, start a random conversation, reach directly via social media, send a handwritten note. I mean, I have lots of stories where, somebody was in the cover of a magazine. I found their address online. I sent them a handwritten note. Before you knew it, I was having lunch with them. It works. Because here's the thing, people love to talk about themselves, and people actually want to help. So when we're asking for informational interviews, that's exactly what we're doing. Please help me figure out my life, and you're gonna have the opportunity to talk about yourself. And before you know it, they think you're the best thing ever, and you're top of mind for opportunities that come across their desk. So be someone people remember. Ideally, be the one people remember. Nurturing relationships. This is the trust building. You can, it's really about how you add value in their life so that you know that you care about them. So when you help them first, there are rules of influence, right? There is reciprocity. People are like, oh, wow, like this person cares about me. What can I do for them? In fundraising, in my field, if, I send somebody a Michigan t-shirt, I know that, and I don't have any of their contact information other than their, business address. 9 out of 10, somebody is going to say, wow, how thoughtful. Thank you so much, giving me access to their email address or cell phone number. Is just, are you willing to do the work? So you can also ask for advice. You can give them opportunities. And sometimes it's just sharing your story. Introverts. There's some introverts in healthcare. I believe that introverts are the best networkers because they have all the qualities of effective networkers. They're on purpose. So their purpose and goals are clear. They are authentic. They can show up as their true selves and express their true intentions. They are curious and they want to learn. They are generous. They show up to serve, and they are grateful. They don't take anything for granted, and they celebrate others. So these are the qualities of a leader. So I'm not saying go and be a Tina and extroverts, because that's ultimately me. I'm saying go and follow the networking process and do it your way and create habit around the networking process. But be authentic. Don't change you, because it will catch up with you. So how to activate your relationships? 3 things. Change your mindset. You're not asking for something. You're giving people an opportunity to make a difference. It's not just, hey, I need a job. It's help me because I want to do good in this world, and let's do good together. Leverage your skill set. So the goal is alignment. So know yourself well and know the other person well so that you can determine that win-win. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And then activation, position yourself as the solution. Are you in the opportunity that you have a solution to their problem? Big takeaway, transformational relationships where 1 + 1 = 3, 4, 5, 6 plus are high trust, and trust takes time. So you're not going to get what you want right away, but be nice to everybody, be kind to everybody, help when you can. I mean, you're all doctors, so that's pretty much the job, right? Helping other people. It will come back to you. You know, the good energy you put out there, it will come back to you. So here's my final thought, and I know we're 6 minutes over, but I've really enjoyed the conversation. It all starts with you and what you wish to see in the world. So, you know, the best networkers know themselves really, really well. Because, and it's so funny, like I was sharing this with a group of people. You know, I was doing a talk and this lady gets on and she's like, Tina, like, thank you for telling me about the inner core and the outer core. And she said, this is how I see it. She was a fitness person. And she said, when your inner core is strong, your spine stands tall. Right? So like when your core is strong, your back doesn't hurt, because my back hurts all the time. So if you do that, if you do the inner work, you know, you're going to have the glow when you meet with other people. And I thought that was like so powerful, like, oh, core, spine, like in how we show up. So it's really hard. I'm not somebody to journal, and I'm like, who has time for that? But the conversations that we have with ourselves are so important. There is no learning without reflection. That applies to us as well. We need to reflect on who we are in our experiences. So I'll finish by saying I'm grateful for all that you all do in healthcare to transform the communities that you serve. You know, especially in today's day and age, you are true heroes.
Tina, I would like to thank you so much for this very inspirational talk you've given us. I think the message that I got was know your core self, know your true self, and remember your ethos for everything that you look at as we progress in our respective careers, both personally and professionally for that matter. I think the content was fantastic and will give us all a piece of advice to take with us as we kind of navigate those next steps. So a huge thank you to you. Thank you to Liana and the team with California ACC for allowing us to put together such wonderful programming and disseminate it to people within the state of California, as well as potentially people across the United States. And a huge thanks to my partner in crime, Natalie, for all the wonderful work that you've done to help us build this Connecting California initiative and deliver programming to fellows that will hopefully all allow us to progress further.